Hey guys, how's it going? Had some requests to put up some new Skyrim videos, so I thought I'd do something a little bit different today. Instead of doing just kind of stationary, still landscape shots to showcase some mods, I figured that I'd actually walk around and kind of talk about some mods as we see them. I want to make this not too long, and so I might go kind of quick. So let's go ahead and get into it. First mod I want to talk about here that I'm using is a mod called SkyUI. Now SkyUI is awesome. It is going to just kind of give you a little more depth to your inventory menus. You can see here that when you look at certain category, lots of information is already displayed. You know, I don't have to cursor over my ebony war axe to see how much damage it does or how much it weighs. All the information is right there without the cursor over. Also lets you kind of sort in different categories, also gives you the ability to filter or search for different things. But really the best thing about this mod, in my opinion, is the way that you're able to favorite things and then keybind them. So like I've got my favorite menu here, and I have bound my sword and shield to 1 and 2. So I'll just unequip those. I could have other things bound to other numbers, health potions, shouts, magic abilities, other weapons. And what this does is it allows you to just basically seamlessly go from, you know, one weapon to another, or one shout to another, or, you know, to use a potion without actually having to pause anything. When I played this game on Xbox forever ago, I remember having to stop and, you know, go to items and go and use my potion, and then go in and go over to my magic and go find my shouts and change the shout that I want to use. This lets you set everything up to just a key button, so you can just press a button and have it or change it, and it's a huge quality of life improvement in terms of maintaining that fluidity of combat and not breaking it up with a bunch of pausing and inventory maintenance. So again, that's called SkyUI, highly recommended. Next thing you might notice already, I don't have a heads-up display. Now, it's not that I don't have one, it's that it's hidden with a mod called Immersive HUD. Now, if I run for a second, you'll see that my stamina starts to go down, and that bar appears. Right now, my magicka and health bars are hidden because they're full. Now that the stamina bar is full, it'll auto-hide on its own any second now. You'll also see that at the top of the screen, I don't have a compass. I have that set up, and this is all customizable. I have it set up so that I have to hold X, and that brings up my compass and my map objectives. This is great for somebody that likes to take videos or screenshots and they don't want the crosshairs or anything like that in the middle of the screen. You can hide all kinds of features using Immersive HUD. I could even have it so that it doesn't have these like interact pop-ups that I wouldn't be able to see that talk Serana, or I wouldn't be able to see that I could pick a certain plant. You could hide all of that if you like. But I just have it set up so that everything auto-hides when my status bars are full and so on. Another quick one here is the camera. Now in first person, obviously the camera is not going to be any different. This is just the vanilla first person camera, but I have a mod called Customizable Camera that lets me do just that. You customize your third person camera pretty much any way you want. Now by default in the game, when you go into third person, your character, you have this kind of over-the-shoulder third-person view with your character offset to one side of the screen. With Customizable Camera, you can set it up so that you're right in the center all the time. And you can change all kinds of variables here. We'll check this out. If you go into System and down to Mod Configuration, there's a number of mods that I can edit using MCM here. And a customizable camera, most of this is default, but you can change the default camera position. You can change the camera position when you're using melee versus camera position when you're using a ranged, like a spell or bows. You can also modify your field of view, maximum view distance for the camera, speed in increments for the zoom, and so on. Another great thing is you can set up profiles here so that you can have multiple kind of presets, so that if you like a certain camera angle for a certain situation, you don't have to change it every time you want to change it. You could save it as a preset. So like for example, this is my third person view, but I have another preset set up where I could just hit G and then I lock into this third-person view. And of course, like every other variable we just looked at, you could change this. You could make the camera higher or lower or closer or farther. You could offset the character and so on. And so this is just an alternative preset that I've put in here that I could toggle between. So that we've got that third-person view, we've got the other third-person view that we already looked at, and then we've got our first-person view as well. So that's all achieved with a mod called Customizable Camera. Real quickly, another mod here is going to be a quality world map. That is the name of the mod, a quality world map. And you know, this isn't going to be a huge drastic difference. All it's really doing is removing some of the cloud cover that would normally be obstructing some of the map, making things a little bit harder to see. And there's also options within the mod that allow you to decide whether you want every road to be displayed and whether you want all the little side roads and trails to be displayed. I just find this to be a huge quality of life improvement as far as, you know, trying to get from A to B. I don't have to wonder where the path is and end up scaling over some mountain. That I can look at the map and see very clearly where the paths are. So Quality World Map is another mod that I really recommend here. But let's talk about followers. They keep kind of pacing around me, so let's introduce them. Serana here, of course from the DLC, is being overhauled by a mod called Seranaholics. Now Seranaholics is just a standalone mod that is just cosmetic changes. It's going to do things like give her a different skin texture, different face configuration. You are able to customize her makeup. You're also able to customize her eyes. You can have red eyes. Right now I have these cat eyes. And of course it gives her a new hair texture. And I'm using this in combination with another mod called Serana's Hood Removal, which does just that. Normally Serana wears a hood outdoors to kind of shield her from the elements and the sunlight since she's a vampire. And Serana Hood Removal just removes that hood so that she won't equip it. And we can see her new do. Over here we've got Serana. Now Serana is not a standalone module. This is part of a packaged mod by an author called Bijin. Anybody that's spent some time on the Nexus has probably seen some of Bijin's mods. He has an all-in-one and then a whole bunch of standalone modules. Ayla here is part of the Bijin Warmaidens, which is basically just cosmetic changes to about a dozen NPCs that can be used as followers. And so this, again, purely cosmetics, just some face tweaking and new hair and so on. Otherwise, with both of these mods, there's no behavior or AI kind of changes at all, that it's all purely cosmetic. So while we're here, there's a lot of grass. Might as well look at some grass and talk about it. I'm using a grass mod called Veydosebrom, which is Veydosebrom. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly. This mod was just recently recommended to me, and I gotta say it is pretty pleasing. Pretty satisfied with the way this grass looks. Now, I'll warn you, you may have a hard time finding this mod. I'm sure that you could track it down on the internet, but unfortunately the author for some reason has chosen to hide the file on the Nexus. So you cannot acquire Veydosebrom from the Nexus any longer. If you can't find this grass mod, I have an alternative that I love. It's called Verdant Grass. Verdant Grass was my favorite grass mod. It looks beautiful. It's just, this one might be a little more realistic looking. The other one is a little more picturesque, but this one, I think that this is the bar to beat at this point as far as grass mods. While we're here, we'll also talk about trees. I've got a mod called 3D Plants, 3D Trees. So the 3D Trees is going to just be a tree replacer, texture replacer. You can tell here that, you know, the bark looks pretty good on these trees. I was using another mod called EDT, Every Tree Different, that was like a further bark replacer, but I just kept having this visual glitch where the trees would kind of like sparkle when I moved my camera. So I ditched EDT and I'm just sticking with the 3D trees right now. Of course, that's going to change all kinds of trees in this game, not just the ones that we're looking at here, but there's also the smaller trees. And this is also going to apply to plants. Of course, it doesn't apply to grass. You know, the grass is from my grass mod. But if you look at plants like, well, this lavender here would qualify, but it's kind of a thin model, not a lot to see here. But all the plants that can be gathered for alchemy are going to be changed by 3D plants, as well as, non-interactable plants have all been changed by it as well. So over here, I think we've got some different mountain flowers. Yep, so we've got some red mountain flowers. Those have been retextured with 3D plants, and the same with these blue mountain flowers out here. And again, this applies to everything from different mushrooms, tundra cotton, juniper berries, snowberries, all kinds of alchemy ingredients and non-interactive plants in the game are going to be retextured by it. While we're here, I might as well take a little quick jaunt into Whiterun. I'll mention now that I've got a mod called JK's Whiterun. JK has a bunch of standalone mods for different cities within the game, but I'm just using the Whiterun mod. It's not a total revamp, it just adds some different architecture to add a little extra character to Whiterun. When I first installed Skyrim Special Edition, my load screen times were probably somewhere between 10 and 15 seconds, depending on where I was traveling to and from. But now that I've ramped up to about 50 to 60 mods, I'd say that my load times are generally between like 15 and 20 seconds in worst case scenario. I mean, it's not that way if I just go indoors or outdoors from a building, but when you're loading into a new area, I am looking at almost 20 seconds of load time, which is not unbearable. It's really not bad considering I'm not running this game on a solid state. It's installed on my mechanical, and I'm only running like a mid-level i5 and a GeForce 760. So obviously, if you've got a newer system and a better processor, better graphics card, then you're not looking at the top end here by any stretch. There's a lot more that could be done to this game. But anyway, so now that we're in Whiterun, you'll see that there's some new like architecture changes. Nothing huge and overbearing, but just kind of adds a little extra character, makes some kind of sparse areas seem a little more lived in. We'll go check out this NPC over here. She's been modified by the Bijin female character appearance mod as well. Probably Bijin NPCs, possibly. And we'll go ahead and travel up here into town. You can see a few more flower types here. It's some purple mountain flowers have been retextured. And of course, we've got all these different trees and shrubbery. See, Carlotta's probably been upgraded with the Bijin's wives, I would assume. Of course, this doesn't apply to every NPC. A lot of NPCs are still gonna, Grandma still looks like Grandma. We'll take a quick jump inside up here to look at some interior lighting. So we'll run into your Vasker to check out ELFX. Now, Enhanced Light and Effects is a mod that's going to kind of slightly overhaul interior and exterior lighting. And to me, really all it's doing is making the light sources more obvious. So like when you walk in here into your Vasker, it's not just bright everywhere uniformly, that it looks lit from its actual light sources. Those candles are lit and they are casting shadow as a result. This bonfire is casting shadows from this source. You can see sun shafts coming in the windows, you can see light coming in from above. It just gives the lighting a much more like realistic look overall. Not a lot more to say about it, so we'll dip back outside and we'll check out some weather variations here. Sorry for all the load screens. I'm going to make you endure one more. I'm going to travel somewhere else just to kind of give us a little more of an outdoorsy feel that's not within a city. Next mod that we'll talk about is going to be called NAT. That's Natural Atmospheric Tamriel. This is like a weather mod amongst other features. It gives you the ability to give different filters to your game's appearance. You could, give it a black and white filter, or like kind of a more gold, or a bright, or a desaturated, or a lo-fi. There's all kinds of different filters you can apply with NAT here. And we'll go ahead and see NAT at work. Just have that favorited. That brings up the menu by casting this spell. And again, we've got some graphic options that includes things like subsurface scattering and some other miscellaneous things. Random weather lets us change the weather, but it is at random. Right now it's pretty clear sky. If you hit random weather, it could give you any weather from any biome. So that could be cloudy, rainy, thunderstorm, light fog, dense fog, cloudy day, sunny day, all kinds of different weather options here at the click of a button. Night settings is basically just going to be either brighter nights or darker nights. I prefer darker nights, but that's just me. Climate settings, similar to weather, but this is what the weather will rotate between. So I can set the climate settings so that it will only ever be weathers that are kind of nice. Or I can set it so that the weathers will only be the types that are kind of dark and gloomy. I just have it on default. That way I can get whatever weather is best suited for any given biome. And then the NATFX is what I was talking about as far as like filters goes. You could make your game black and white or a number of other different filters. The one I'm mostly interested in here is with graphic options having to do with dawn and dusk. At sunrise and sunset in this game, you get a real nice kind of like glow to the sun and the sky, and NAT allows that to just last a little longer. It extends those lighting effects for a grander period of time. So that's NAT, and that's the weather effects, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention ENBs at this point. So what is an ENB? Kind of hard to describe if you're not familiar with it, but an ENB is basically just something that allows you to it kind of reworks the camera and how that interacts with like lighting and different camera effects. That might seem kind of vague, but it's really things to do with like bloom or depth of field, and so I'll try to demonstrate that here. Right now I have like a fairly strong, but not super strong, depth of field setup. So you can tell, when I look far off into the distance, everything is in focus. Things aren't blurry when I'm looking at them. However, if I look at an object in the foreground, then things in the distant background will become out of focus. Now that is my depth of field, and it does have to do with distance and in the architecture of the landscape, where things are blurry far away, but as I look directly at them, they come into focus at a further and farther distance. This is really obvious when you're talking to NPCs. If I talk to Serana here, you'll see everything around her kind of goes out of focus, and that you're only focused on the foreground. It's a really subjective thing. A lot of people don't like overly powerful depth of fields, but it's just something that I really kind of enjoy about the game. I like that I can walk up to a foreground item and it just snaps focus into that. Personal preference, though. So, moral of the story here, between this last few mods that I covered, if you're new to modding and you're really trying to get the biggest bang for your buck, the biggest visual upgrade with the fewest number of mods, you really have to have an ENB, and I'm using an ENB preset called NVT. So the NVT ENB preset I'm using with NAT, my weather mod, and I'm also using with ELFX, my lighting mod. Those three mods together are going to completely revamp the way Skyrim looks to you. Of course, the other mods are going to be the things like, rock textures, wood textures, trees, plants, NPCs, armor, animals, and so on. But if you just want a couple of things that will really change the way your game looks, gives it a much more modern engine kind of feel, the ENB and a couple of weather and lighting mods are going to make the biggest difference here. And at that point, I guess that while we're here so close to nighttime, I'll try to make it night, see if we can't catch a glimpse of some decent nighttime weather, which it's not looking so great for that. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of different weathers. So we've got fog, more fog for a different environment, cloudy forest, so you can start to see a little bit of the stars out there. We'll go ahead and keep rotating between. You might end up getting some... Now see, okay, this is good. It says snow. It's not snowing currently. That's no surprise. It just means that it could snow at any moment. I'm using a mod called Ethereal Clouds, and that's what you see in that cloud cover out there. That's, you know, the slow-moving small clouds. That's from Ethereal Clouds. Again, it's kind of hard to tell a lot of mods without having a side-by-side comparison, but it's one that I think is pretty cool. Go ahead and click another random weather here. We're just getting clear weather. I'd really like to get some rain or something, or some auroras, but that's the problem with the random, is that it's just not going to cooperate with us. But at least you're getting an idea of, you know, how drastic things, you know, can look differently just with the weather and the climate. You know, we went from a starry night to a starless night. You know, to not even being able to hardly see the moon through the fog. But I feel like things are getting a little redundant here, and I don't want to just keep carrying on. So I'm going to leave it here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions about anything you'd like explained more in depth, or you know, something else you'd like to see, or something that you're curious about, feel free to leave a comment or drop me a message. And if you like this video, click that like button, and feel free to comment and subscribe. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.